Because we fought back, because we said it was wrong, because we weren't bullied by the Journal News, justice prevailed. And gun permit holders in New York State won a victory this week. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Last night, the Journal News, that Westchester Gannett newspaper that managed to ignite a national furor by releasing the names and addresses of lawful gun permit holders in a pedophile-like interactive map, surrendered. The map came down. The reason? We decided to remove the gun permit data from lowhud.com at 5 p.m. today. While the new law does not require us to remove the data, we believe that doing so complies with its spirit. You're kidding, right? The new law doesn't require that you remove anything? Don't you love it when the loser tries to make it look like he really won? Like he's taking the high road? Like the decision to retreat was really a voluntary one? And oh, by the way, since you refused to speak on this issue for weeks as you hid behind your bodyguards with guns, what hole did you climb out of to wave your white flag? The truth? I think you're scared that the two homes you identified as having guns that were burglarized where guns were taken might have played into your convenient surrender. Even your own employees felt your newspaper put them at risk.
I agree with you, and I am on your side on this, but I'm just wondering if that's not an invitation to somebody with a gun.
But you're concerned that if you say you're gun-free, somebody with a gun's going to come and...
I think, yeah.
So why don't you just admit you had an agenda and you tried to connect gun permit holders to the massacre of innocents in Newtown, and you put law-abiding citizens at risk? So how do we stop the massacres like the one that occurred in Newtown? President Obama this week rolled up his sleeves, and here are a few of his suggestions. Number 7, launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign. Now, do you really think a criminal in possession of an illegal gun about to commit a crime is going to stop and take a listen to your responsible gun ownership campaign? And number 4, the president says that he will direct the Attorney General to review the category of individuals prohibited from having a gun. Really? Aren't all criminals and the mentally ill already prohibited from owning a gun? That hasn't stopped them. Number 11, the president says there should be a nomination of an ATF director. By the way, Mr. President, isn't that something you should have done during the Fast and Furious debacle when we were furiously shipping assault rifles into the hands of the Mexican drug cartel? And the president's number 13, maximize enforcement efforts to prevent gun violence and prosecute gun crime. This from a president under whose watch gun crime prosecutions have gone down 40%. Now, I've dedicated my professional life to prosecuting criminals. I've been on every side of the gun issue. I've arrested, indicted, convicted, and sentenced gun traffickers. I've reviewed pistol permits to determine who should even carry a gun. And I have fought for tougher gun laws. You want to know how to stop gun crime? It doesn't start with the punishment of law-abiding citizens. You don't hamper us in the exercise of our Second Amendment right. What you do is you prosecute gun crime. You increase the penalties for any illegal gun possession and the use of guns in any crime. You create mandatory minimum sentences for gun criminals. You coordinate investigations with local prosecutors who have their ear to the ground. You don't limit the number of bullets in our magazines so that the criminal gets to outgun us. You allow for the confinement of the dangerously mentally ill and require those in the mental health profession to report these individuals to authorities and prosecute those professionals if they don't tell us. And by the way, Mr. President, noticeably absent from this wish list is any mention of violent movies and video games that are so much a part of our pop culture. The Hollywood glitterati, bless them, have demanded a plan to push gun regulation. Take a listen.
Columbine.
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad.
As a friend.
Demand a plan. Now, I love the movies, but I hate hypocrisy, especially Hollywood hypocrisy. The same people who make billions selling violence as a normal way of life want you to take away our guns. Just look at some of the most popular movies now, some nominated for Academy Awards. And their plan is to take our guns away, the guns of law-abiding citizens, but they oppose any effort to curb the violence in their world. The Entertainment Merchants Association, that made $35 billion, warned against even investigating a link between movie videos and real-life violence. Quote, "Make no mistake, blaming movies and video games is an attempt to distract the attention of the public and the media from meaningful action that will keep our children safer." Really? They think their First Amendment is more important than our Second Amendment. So much for the blood-soaked entertainment industry. Now, Mr. President, you lambasted the Congress people who get money from the NRA.
Ask them what's more important. Doing whatever it takes to get a A grade from the gun lobby that funds their campaigns, or giving parents some peace of mind when they drop their child off for first grade.
By the way, the NRA has an approval rating of 53%, which is even higher than your approval rating, and even the American public disagrees with you. Would there be less violent crime in the U.S. if guns were banned? 28% say yes. But they say if 58% say if more law-abiding people had guns, there would be less violent crime. Now, Mr. President, aren't you indebted to the entertainment industry because they supported you? Are you doing whatever it takes to get your A grade from the Hollywood lobby that funded your campaign? Why not give law-abiding Americans the right to defend themselves? After all, it is a God-given constitutional right. With me now is syndicated columnist and author Michelle Malkin, who joins us from Colorado Springs. Michelle, thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, and you're right on target, Judge Jeanine.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Listen, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this whole thing, this media influence, and the fact that the president, in 23 of his recommendations, didn't even mention the media or Hollywood.
Well, the silence is certainly deafening, and I think over the last several months, we've seen a massive collective overdose of hypocrisy on the part of so many of these outspoken Hollywood anti-gunners, these gun grabbers who want to disavow absolutely any responsibility at all for their own role in glamorizing guns and profiting off of it. And like I said, you're right on target in talking about how President Obama and his team and this administration have owed so much to the entertainment industry. Now you've got the Entertainment Merchants Association essentially threatening the White House against doing anything to plumb the correlation, the relationship between violent culture and what we're seeing with these outbreaks. Now, make no mistake, I am certainly myself not claiming that it is Hollywood producers, any individual one of them, that's responsible for any of these massacres.
Of course not, Michelle.
However, what we're talking about the double standards here, because you can hear from any number of these Hollywood liberals who will jump at any opportunity to criticize conservative rhetoric in the most ridiculous ways. If we use metaphors that involve targets, you remember how vicious they were with Sarah Palin, and yet they cannot apply that same thinking to their own tactics, to their own products.
And not to mention Michael Moore, remember his bodyguard was, he's so anti-gun, but his bodyguard was arrested for having an unlicensed gun. But Michelle, I want to move into an area that I think is fascinating, where in this 23-point wish list of the president, he talks about the fact that he wants to clarify that the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors from asking patients about guns in their home. Now, the way I envision this is I go to the doctor. I say to the doctor, gee, my foot hurts. And the doctor then says, you got a gun? I mean, what does that have to do with the diagnosis and treatment that I'm going to the doctor for?
Yeah, I think this raises all sorts of red flags, and I reported on this earlier this week that unfortunately there is a liberal leadership among many medical associations, the AMA, the American Medical Association, the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And for a long time, dating back to at least the Clinton years, many of these associations have been very brazen in their anti-gun agenda. In fact, going so far as to talk about wholesale bans on handguns and the continued demonization of law-abiding gun owners, which is what you talked about in your opening statement. And what I think that Obama is doing in signaling with this HIPAA, this sort of directive here, is that he's encouraging them to be even more snitchy and snoopy than they've already been.
Kind of shocking to go to the doctors and having the president recommend and make sure that doctors know that they can and should be asking about guns. Kind of crazy in my mind. Michelle Malkin, thanks for being with us this evening.
You bet.